Okay, folks, and we are now live. I want to welcome y'all to another video produced by Financial Anatomy. I'm your host, Elijah Blau. This is the place where we help young adults take control of their financial destiny. And one of the biggest things, whether we realize it or not, society kind of pushes us towards it, but we don't have much education on how to do it, is eventually you're going to want to get a house once you get that high paying job, high paying skill, start that business. As long as things are going pretty smooth, eventually you're probably going to want to buy a house. But it's not like they exactly teach you how the home buying process goes in school. You kind of left to fend for yourselves and see how that goes. And a lot of times we may make some mistakes, some very costly mistakes, or it may take longer than it probably should to get into a home. So that's why I'm excited to be talking to one of my friends that's a realtor. Her name is Tamiko Syrie, and she's going to break the game down in terms of finding a home so you can avoid some of the common mistakes and you can get the outcomes that you want. So just a little information on Shuri. She's an accomplished realtor, mother, and business owner based in the state of Texas. So for those of y'all that are here locally, if you want to know more about Shuri, feel free to check out her website. I'll leave a link in the description, also in the pinned comment, as well as if you just want more information on real estate in general. She is studying for a real she has she studied for a real estate broker license as a way to serve more people and help them reach their real estate goals. Last year, her volume was over 2.7 million, and she is on track to hit 3.5 million as of 2021. Her main focus is residential, which includes listings, purchases, new construction leases, and an emphasis on commercial. And one thing that we'll talk about also, this is her 7th year anniversary as a realtor. So that's a huge thumbs up. Some of her other interests include life coaching certification that will be used as a platform to coach and mentor ladies as they navigate this life. Her focus will be in areas of business, health, relationships. Tamiko is a firm believer that it takes partnerships to overcome pain and challenge to heal. She also knows it takes a team and work to create your best life. When Tamiko is not taking care of business and helping others, she enjoys music, exercise, travel, good food, quiet time, movies, and making memories with her family and friends. So that's a pretty banging intro, banging bio. So let's give a welcome round of applause to Tamiko. I'm glad to have you on the stream.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here. Thanks so much.
Most definitely. Well, let's start off by how's your day going? Is it going pretty smooth?
My day is going great, even though we lost an hour because we're springing forward. Um, Day is still great. It's bright and sunny and beautiful, and it's a good day. It's a good day.
Yeah.
What about you? How's your day so far?
It's been pretty busy in a good way. I'll admit,
Good.
that hour, it actually caught me by surprise because my mom texted me to remind me. Then it clicked that I didn't put my clocks for it. I was like, oh gosh, I got
Yes.
stuff scheduled. So she texted me early enough in the day for it not to make a huge difference. But yeah, that could have been a catastrophe.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought about it when I got back home from some meetings earlier. I didn't change the clock in the kitchen. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, it's 3 o'clock. And I'm like, okay, I don't have this until 5. And I was like, oh, I didn't change that. So
Right,
yeah,
right,
it could be a
right.
catastrophe. Oh my gosh.
So let's start off by asking exactly what inspired you to become a realtor.
Oh my gosh. So back goodness, some years ago, long years ago, I actually did mortgage and I loved it. I love being able to help people get in their home because, that's pretty much the first person that someone should talk to when they're wanting to purchase their home. So loved it. But then 2008 happened. So I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I decided to just go back to work and go and, get a full-time job. And then while I was still at the full-time job, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just do something else, just to have something else to do in case anything ever happened to the full-time and just to also have some residual. So I was like, maybe I'll go back into mortgage. So mortgage was a little bit different. After 2008, they didn't really do the part-time thing anymore like they did when I was doing it. So I was like, oh gosh, what am I going to do now? And so in 2011, I decided to purchase a home. And I purchased that and ran into Kinsey Moore, who is actually my broker now, but he sold me my house. And we kind of talked, and I was kind of telling him like, hey, this is what I'm wanting to do. And he was like, well, have you thought about being a realtor? And so from there, I decided to be a realtor. Love it so much more than being in mortgage. And the main thing that I get out of it is really being able to be one of the honest ones out there that really wants to work with people and give them the good information they need to make a good decision, not, prompting them in one way or the other, just so that they can make a good decision based on their big purchase. So that's kind of like how I got here. Yeah, that's
So
kind of how I got here.
you were already involved in the real estate industry in some form prior to becoming a realtor.
Exactly. I was. Yeah, I was. And it was good because back then, a lot of the requirements weren't like they are now. And there were a lot of good programs in place. It's just we had predators out there that were just not, being forthcoming and honest with how all of those programs worked for people. So it hurt people financially. So it changed things. But yeah, I've been in it. That was a long time ago, like what, 2000, up until 2008. So yeah, it was maybe around 4 or 5 years prior to that. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotta ask this question
Yeah.
later, but I think now it's kind of fitting. But we all know when it comes, well, just in general. So like, there's two types of realtors. There's the sincere person that really wants to help you get into your dream home or the home that best fits your situation. Then there's the realtor where they're much more concerned with their commission,
Yep.
getting you the results you want.
Yep.
As a buyer, someone who's looking for a realtor to get them in a home, what are some signs? Like, what are some good signs you should look for in a realtor, and what are some signs like, okay, I need to back up?
Yeah, that is a very good question. I get a lot of business because of some of the things I'm about to tell you. So, one true sign is, let's say you talk to your mortgage person, and we're going to talk about that when we go through the home buying process. But let's say you talk to your mortgage person, you're qualified for 350,000, but you talk to your real estate agent and you let your real estate agent know, hey, I know, my top max is 350, but I really want to stay in this particular budget because I want my payment to be a certain amount. So instead of listening to you, they still send you all of these homes that are 350, 325, 335. You're also telling them still, I think that's just a little over, but they're still just pushing you. So that's one sign if they're not really listening to what it is you're wanting and what your needs are. A second sign is just not calling you back, not being responsive. I try my best to respond. I feel like our phones, it's right here. I mean, I know we're busy sometimes, but don't get me wrong. But if you're not getting a call back at least by the next day, um, maybe 2 days, but at least by the next day, that's a sign too that either the agent is just new, doesn't quite know what they're doing, the agent's too busy and may not be able to, fit you in based on your needs, or they're just like, oh, it's not a big deal. But those are two signs. And then what's one more? I think those are the top two. You really want an agent that's listening to you and an agent that's responsive. And I would say you also want an agent that's not giving you more of their opinion. When it's more of like, well, I think you should do this or I think you should do that. You want to work with the agent that's telling you, well, this is what's going on in the market. So you can do this and this may happen, or you can do that and that may happen. And you're getting to make your decision. It's not that I'm telling you or, trying to sway you in one way or the other, because that other way that I'm swaying you, maybe is that benefiting me? Why is that person trying to push me that way? So those are three things I would tell someone to look out for. Yeah, definitely.
And as someone who's been in sales before, what I would say, if you're in business for yourself, sales technically never stopped. I'll say in sales positions before.
Exactly.
Being more concerned about your commission as opposed to helping the client never
Yep.
works out. And if they
Yep.
put their interests at the top of the list, you tend to get a lot more referrals and you get taken care of anyway. So just
Yeah,
put it out there for people who are in any kind of sales.
I totally agree. And people can feel that, people can kind of gauge and feel all of those things. So yeah, yeah, just be a good agent, be a good salesperson. Look out for your client.
Right.
Yeah.
So speaking of getting a house,
Yeah.
for the young adult who just got a promotion or just got a made a huge achievement in their career goals, and they've increased their income, they just started their new business or they just got a new trade, their income increased, they saved up their money, and now it's time to go buy a house. But guess what? They didn't teach me how to do this in school. So like, where do I start? How do I get started?
Exactly.
What is
Exactly.
what's the home buying process exactly?
The home buying process. It can be so tedious, it can be so overwhelming, but I think when you get with someone that just explains it to you and you're able to ask questions, it can be not so overwhelming. Still overwhelming, but not so much. One thing I will say before I get into the home buying process is that for young people, you're right here with Elijah. He's a financial advisor, all about the finances. So he's going to be able to definitely relate to this. Anything you do, the younger that you are, the younger you start, the better. So just think of it this way. A lot of young people are probably like, should I even be, thinking about purchasing a home? I'm 18, I'm 21, I'm 24. The younger you start, the better. So let's just say, for example, your grandmother leaves you money, or you come into some money, or now you are working, as Elijah mentioned, and you're not quite sure what to do. Well, there's going to be some renters, there's going to be some people who purchase. That's just the way it is. But let's say you're thinking about purchasing. Think of it like a 401k. Think of it like stocks growing. Okay, I'm 18, I'm 21, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be my first house. It's not the best house, but you know what? Hey, it's a small place, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, or 2 baths, or 1 bath. But it's a starter home and it doesn't really require that much work. So now I'm in that home and I'm young. So, you know what? I'm going to pay the mortgage down, or maybe you're lucky and your mortgage is already paid down. But however you've done it, now you're ready to move to the next step. Well, what do you have there? You have something that's growing, meaning it's appreciating. As long as sales are going up and you're paying your mortgage on time, even pay a little extra, maybe once a year, pay an extra payment that gets your mortgage cut down by maybe 7 years or so. But you're paying this off fast. So now what are you doing? You're capitalizing on some money that's sitting there. You're actually, creating a little nest egg. So now you decide, you know what, I want something a little bigger. I want something a little newer. Well, now you can lease out this place. I'm going to lease it out. Guess what else I'm going to do? I'm going to refinance this place, and my next house, that's going to be my down payment and my closing costs. Or if this home is paid in full, I'm going to put a big chunk over here or just buy this house. But look at it as accumulating wealth. So that's what I want to say to young people. Never think that you're too young to purchase a home, because if that rent is $1,500 a month, if that rent is $1,000 a month, that's just rent that's going to that landlord. Whereas you could be paying that into your monthly payment for your mortgage, and then you're now building a nest egg. And you can continue doing that until you have as many doors as you want, or you get into a market like this where, hey, I bought this house 3, 4, or 5 years ago, and now I can sell it for almost double, so I want young people to think of it that way. Okay. So think of it as, I'm building a nest egg for my family, for myself and for my family, and I will not be young all of the time. So that's my tip to the youngsters. If you're interested in purchasing, do that and look at it as a way of wealth building, not just a place to live.
It's interesting you say that because a lot of financial information is out nowadays. So
Mm-hmm.
you got two sides, and both sides are valid. But I really want young adults to understand this. You have the side where a lot of people believe like you have to finance a home. There's no other way to do it. And that may not necessarily be true. And then there's a side where I call it like the Dave Ramsey side, the extreme side where I'm going to pay for cash for every single thing. So I'm not getting
Mm-hmm.
a home until I can pay for cash. That's fine, but what if you're saying that 20 years from now? I think that's a little excessive. So
Exactly.
what I always tell young adults is this is why I put so much emphasis on raising income, getting a skill or a trade. And I hate to say, but that can't be another job. It's got to be something where you give yourself permission to be impatient. I really
Right.
want to get this house. Let me put energy towards my trade and start stocking up money.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're gonna save up to have a house paid for in cash, at the very least, give yourself like a maximum of 5 years. Like, okay, I'm gonna really buckle down and do my hardest to save up to buy a house in cash. But if 5 years comes and you still manage to do it, at that point, life has pushed back a little too much. Go ahead and get
Mm-hmm.
into your house, but you're gonna have a pretty sizable down payment, so that mortgage is not gonna be too much if you
Right.
follow those steps. And I feel like
Exactly.
that's a good balance between the two.
Mhm.
But on the same token, if you do finance a home, you got to remember this is also increasing your net worth and you're building equity in the home. So take all that into consideration. Don't go to full I have to buy a cash route. There are two sides of the same coin. Look at both of them, and if you're gonna do the cash route, don't prolong it more than 5 years because at that point it's like you want to enjoy it while you're young. Come on.
Right. You really do. And sometimes you may not want to put, all of your cash into it. So I like your idea there in terms of, give yourself some time. So yeah. But that would be my tip as well. And I like the points that you mentioned. That is so true. Um, but yeah, that takes me, I guess, into the actual process. So, what does it take to buy a home? Can I really buy a home? Some people just feel like they're so far from that, but they're not always that far off. Get a lot of people, they think, oh, my credit's bad. I don't have enough money. But once you know the process and know what you need to do, then you just prepare. So I normally tell people, I meet with them, sit down, and I want to go over the whole pie and have them ask questions. So I mentioned a minute ago that the first process is going to, or the first step in the process is going to be talking to your mortgage loan officer. And so the reason you want to talk to your mortgage loan officer is a couple of reasons. They're going to look at your credit. So your credit is very important. I know you hear all the time different people talking about how important credit is and your credit scores, this and your credit score there, that. But it is important. It really drives your rate. So if you want to pay, you know, the best rate back, well, that's not how I want to say it. But if you want to pay the least amount back and get the best rate, you want to make sure that you're, handling your credit with care. So credit is so, so, so important. Always pay your debts on time. Make sure you keep your balance is low. Just all of those things you hear, they really do count, especially when you're purchasing a home. Because the difference with a loan officer looking at your credit is just the difference of a consumer report versus them pulling it from a mortgage perspective. And it's just a different algorithm, meaning that you may look at your consumer score and it's 680, but a mortgage person looks at your consumer score and is a 620. A little bit more is taken into account. So please make sure that you're watching your credit, but because you're going to talk to a mortgage person, that's one of the first things they look at. They're also going to look at your income because what they're doing is making sure, can I get this person the best rate and how much can they afford? So once you talk to that mortgage person, that's when you'll know what your credit looks like. If you've been doing good with your credit, you already know you're good. But if you've had a few hiccups, this is the place that you need to go before you decide to pay off anything or pay down anything. Sometimes you don't have to do those things, and then you're keeping that money in your pocket for your down payment and your closing costs or for furniture, for whatever. So talk to the mortgage loan officer first so that way they can analyze everything and tell you where you stand. So they're going to let you know, this is the rate that I can offer based on your credit. This is the amount of home you can afford based on your income. And with that, you have step one. So you'll either know if you're pre-approved or pre-qualified. You're pre-qualified just based on the things that you've told the loan officer. They haven't looked at any of your paperwork. You're pre-approved once they've actually looked at it. They have taken a look at your pay stubs. They've taken a look at your W-2s. They've taken a look at your bank statements. So they've actually been able to pre-approve you because they've actually taken a look at everything and done crunched the numbers and made everything work. So that is the first step and is the most important step. Don't skip that, because if you come to me and you haven't been pre-approved, I'm not showing you a house because it's just a false sense of hope. You're wanting to go look at all of these homes, but if you like something, you may not be able to afford it, or you just may not be pre-qualified at the moment because there's some things you need to take care of. But that's step number one. So let's just say now you've talked to the loan officer, everything is good. You're moving. Well, one of two things are going to happen. You're not going to be pre-approved. So work on whatever that person tells you because they're the ones that's lending the money. So since they're lending the money, they're the ones that know what you need to do in order to get that money so that you can get your home. Mm-hmm. However, we're going to move forward because you're pre-approved. You've got your pre-approval letter. Now we're ready to look for homes. So the tricky part about looking for homes is that it really depends on what the market is doing. Usually when you talk to your real estate agent, sometimes your loan officer will also preface, what the market is doing as well. But once you talk to your realtor, they'll let you know if this is a buyer's market or if it's a seller's market. how we need to actually craft, the offers so that, your offer is more appealing once you're submitting it. As we're now in a seller's market, you're up against so many offers. I've heard, the horror stories is like, it's crazy right now. So depending on the market, um, you just want to make sure that you're doing whatever is needed in order to just, make your offer look more appealing. So that's what you'll work on with your realtor. But normally at this point, you're looking at homes that are in your price range, not over. And again, if it is over, you need to probably really talk to your realtor or change realtors. But you're looking for homes and you're shopping around. In a buyer's market, it's lovely because in a buyer's market, there's enough inventory that, most likely your offer will get accepted, or you will find another home where your offer will get accepted. In a seller's market, however, there's just not enough inventory. And even when it comes to building, because that's another option, it just may mean that it's months down the line. So it depends on your time frame in terms of that. But now you're at the point where you're looking for a home. I like to tell people at this point, and usually even before we get to this point, I like to tell them before they're even pre-approved. There's some out-of-pocket money that you will have, to have, so that once your contract is executed and you're able to move forward, you're not left behind because you didn't know you needed this money. So that is earnest money. Earnest money is like good faith money, and it's money that's held at the title company until you close. Usually it's 1% of the sales price of the home. So that is money that you will need. And I call it upfront money when I'm talking to my clients, just so that they know, hey, this is what you're going to need on the front end, not when you close. So do you have this in the bank right now? Because you need it right then. So let's just say you're looking at a $200,000 home. You're going to need $2,000 that's in the form of a money order. I'm sorry, not a money order, a cashier's check, or you can pay it through a wire transfer. That goes directly to the title company. It's held there until you close, and you do get a credit back for that. If anything happens that's within contract terms, meaning you're not defaulting on the contract, you can get that back. So it's not like it's lost in la la land and you're not getting this money back. It's still there for you. There's also something called termination option period. And that is a period that's usually used for you to get your inspection. So it's roughly maybe 7 days for $200. Again, that even that amount goes up and down just depending on the market. Right now we're in a seller's market, so we're trying to make sure everything looks as appealing as we can to Mr. Seller, so that when they look at our offer, oh, he wants only 3 days for $200. That's really fast. But, maybe 7 days for $200. That gives you 7 days to get your inspection, because really that's what it's used for. You want time to be able to have that inspector, schedule the inspector, have the inspector go out, walk through the home with you once he's done his thing, and go over all the ins and outs, and we'll get to that later. But that's what that time period is for. And that money is also, it goes to the seller, directly to the seller, but you do get a credit for that as well. The only caveat I'd say with the option fee money is that you will not get that back if you don't move forward, you don't get that back. But you got your days. And the good thing about that, if you're within your time frame to terminate, because it's giving you the option to terminate the contract for any reason within that time frame, but you get your earnest money back. So the next piece of monies that you need to have would be for your inspection. That goes directly to the inspector. You will not get a credit back. So we're hoping that this is the house, because even with my house, this one that I'm living in, not this one, but when I was looking for a home, I did have to have 2 inspections. So it happens. I don't want people to think that, oh my gosh, I lost that money and, what's going to happen now? But it does happen. I didn't want the other house and I did want this one, and I had to pay 2 inspections. So that does go to the inspector, no credits. And the other piece is going to be for the appraisal. The inspection, let me back up. The inspection is important. It is optional, but it is important because when we walk into a house, we don't know what's going on with it. We can see some things, yes, but
contractor eyes.
Exactly, we don't have contractor eyes. And so that inspector, they're there for like 3-4 hours. So, and they call you out the last hour. So it's really important to have an inspection, but it is the buyer's option. There are some times where things happen out of the norm where they may not get an inspection, and that's just really dependent on each deal. But it's always good to get an inspection. But that's what the inspection is for, to make sure that everything with the house is functioning and working as it should be. And if it's not, then we want to go to Mr. Seller and say, hey, we want this fixed, that fixed, and this fixed. Yeah. So the next piece is, so that's, whatever that cost is. And then you also have the cost of an appraisal. And the appraisal is just what it sounds like. It tells you the value of the home, just to make sure it's not overpriced. If it's underpriced, that's good. But you also want to try to figure out why. I've seen some that are underpriced, and it's because people have to sell fast, or it's a short sale, something like that. But those are the 4 pieces of monies that everyone should make sure they have, and that, because you will need that once your contract's executed. And that's all in the looking for the home phase.
Okay.
Okay.
I will ask this.
Yeah.
Everything you've said so far, are there any like common myths that you want to dispel about that process? Because a lot of people have opinions about this stuff, and but I like to always line up with the facts.
Right.
Are there any common myths that's floating out there that you want to dispel for our listeners?
One of the things I hear a lot, and I even heard it before I was in the business. That's why I know now. I'm like, So a lot of people will say, I'm a first time home buyer, so I want first time home buyer programs. And I really don't see them as first time home buyer programs. Maybe they're geared toward first time home buyers, but most times they're like maybe down payment assistance programs. And not just first time homeowners are always qualified. It could be anyone purchasing a home. So that's one myth. I really didn't understand that until I got into the business, because that was what I would ask, like, oh, let me see what I can get them. You're a first time home buyer. And then I'm like looking around like, these are just down payment assist. They're just programs in place, but I guess it's like, it lights up it makes your, I don't want to say lights up your ears, but your ears kind of get more heightened, and you're like listening, like, oh, first time home buyers, what's that? So that's one myth I see. What's some more myths out here? I have some people I have some people that move from other states, and they think that things should work maybe the way their state works, meaning that we were kind of in the same market where it was a seller's market when I remember helping a couple that moved here from out of state, and they really didn't understand how, like, they didn't know like why their offer wasn't accepted, and like, did they even look at it? I'm having to try to go over the offer amount just to get them to look at it. And it was just because sometimes with bidding and offers, it's just, you may not know why somebody's not accepting your offer. I don't know if that's really answering that question. That's just maybe more of something that's just factual that happens. But
That's a good point, though. Like,
yeah.
in terms of people moving out of state, it might be in a different way, but
Mm-hmm.
states have different conditions they have to live in. So
Exactly.
some are close, like where you're trying to buy a house might be close to the sea, so you might want to check to see if the house has ever been flooded before. Or some states
Mm-hmm.
have foundation problems, so you want to check for that. So there are things specific to different regions, and states can kind of, when you look at it like that, realtor can really let you know those things up front, so you know.
Right.
Right.
Right. And we do. And sometimes it's just a learning curve, like you said. It's just things are done differently, and you just have to educate people. And sometimes maybe you don't know what to educate them on until something comes up. I would say another myth is like all of the no money down, and I don't need any money. I got get a lot of people that feel like they don't have to have a down payment, or a seller is going to pay all of their closing costs. What were you going to say?
Oh, I'm just, I hadn't heard
It,
that myth before, but I'm learning
yeah.
something. That just it's
Yeah, I get a lot of people. They're really expecting that the seller is going to pay like their closing costs and things like that. And I have to let them know we can ask them to pay some or all of the closing costs. But even in a seller's market, the way we are now, if you probably even put closing costs on there, it could be like I mean, your offer may or may not get looked at, and you just have to be honest, with clients. And it's sad, but it's just really, that's why I was saying at the beginning of this that when you're talking to your realtor is going to let you know what the market is right now. Like, hey, this is what I'm seeing when I'm putting in offers for other clients, this is what we're getting back. This is the feedback. So yeah, we can offer lower, we can put in closing costs, we can do this. But just to go back to the myth, there's really not a lot. There's never any free money. I'll just say it that way. So there's always ways to do a deal that you may not have to pay down payment, you may not have to pay closing costs, and there are certain programs and things you may be pre-approved for, but it's really a myth to go into the home buying process thinking that you really don't have to have money. Because I do run into a lot of people that think that way, so that's one of the myths. Yeah, it's not true. Yeah, even if you don't have to use all of your money or whatever, it's still good from a lender perspective to show reserves anyway. Like, it just makes your file look stronger. You don't look as risky. So it doesn't hurt to have some money. It's really a good thing. Yep. So we've gotten the pre-approval stage. Now we've been pre-approved. Now we're looking for a home. Okay, now we know we've got to have this upfront money because we've got to have something, because once it's executed, meaning now my contract's accepted. So those things have to be paid. Time is of the essence. You're going to have a certain amount of days to get everything in terms of the option fee and the earnest money. And now you need to be calling your inspector. So you need to call the inspector, get that scheduled, so that they can go out and make sure that your home is just functioning perfect. And if it's not, you know why. And now we're at a point where we've gone through that. And so you'll be at more of a negotiations again with repairs with the seller. So you'll kind of go back and forth with that and iron that out. Once you've gotten through that hump, I'd say the looking process is it can be up to 30 days. I mean, looking for a home can really be tedious just because of offers, and maybe you don't like this, or you saw a house you thought you liked and then you go and look at it, you're like, no. So that takes some time. I try to tell people, take your time, you'll know it when you see it, but it's not going to be like, I see this house tomorrow. And some people do, you can get lucky, but sometimes finding the home takes, a big bulk of time and then getting the offer accepted. Once you've gotten through those phases, like I just mentioned, you've gotten your monies to the title company, you've gotten your option fee money to the seller, it's going to get a little quiet. And that just means that now it's in the underwriter's hands, it's in the lender's hands. So your lender is combing through your file, making sure that there's not a lot of risk, making sure that they're getting, everything together so that the underwriter says, yes, stamp of approval, you're done, you're ready to close. So it'll seem a little quiet, and I'll kind of, let my clients know it's going to seem quiet now. We've been really on it and seeing each other almost every day and talking on the phone, but now it's going to get quiet because it's in the lender's hand and they do what they need to do to get everything approved. And then they'll let them know, once it is approved, or if they need anything else from them, any paperwork or documents. They will also outline all of the money that's needed for the transaction so that they know what they need for closing. And then at that point, once they get ready to close, they'll meet at the title company and the title rep will close them out. They'll just sign, and then they'll get the keys to their home. Yeah. So that's pretty much the process, kind of quickly, but that's the process.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, when it comes to closing costs,
Mm-hmm.
some people say if you're paying with cash, that'll actually reduce your closing costs. Is that true?
When you're paying with cash, it does reduce your closing costs. And the reason that it does is because now you don't also have lender fees. So if you're not using a lender, you're only going to see title fees. And maybe, well, yeah, not even really that. But yeah, you're just going to see title fees. So you can save. And another way you can save is time. You're able to get in your house a lot quicker. So you can close tomorrow. Well, whenever the title company says they have the paperwork ready for you to close and sign, you can actually do that. So you do save, because usually you're going to see lender fees, plus you're going to see title company fees, and you get to get rid of one of those. Yeah, so no lender fees. So you save some money.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're on the topic of buying a house in cash. What exactly is different about the house buying process if you do choose to buy in cash? Like, well, if you're going to buy in cash, you should do this instead of this, or you shouldn't do this. Like, is there anything different in the overall process?
There is. So, in terms of purchasing a home and you're using a lender, we're asking for a pre approval. Well, just because you are paying with cash, it doesn't mean we're letting you off the hook. Just because you say you have $300,000 in the bank, we don't know that. So, we want something called, proof of funds. So, it can be as simple as a bank statement. They can, like, you know, darken their account number, blot it out. But we want to see that you actually have that money, because when we're sending that contract over to that seller, they're still going to want to know that you can, purchase that home. So that's the one thing that's different. We still want to see proof of funds. It's just not, a pre-qualification. Some things that are different as well is that I guess depending on I guess the person that's purchasing, because sometimes when people are buying cash, they may be investors, or they may kind of know a little bit about a home to where they can look at it and scope it out themselves. So they may not even opt to get an inspection. So I have seen that happen with some of the cash deals I've done. One guy, though, he was an actual buyer, so not a contractor or investor. So of course he did get an inspection. But sometimes when you have those cash buyers, they know a little bit about homes, so they're saving there because they're not getting an inspection. And another thing that can sometimes happen is you may be able, to have a little bit of wiggle room to negotiate more. With financing, we still want to negotiate as well. I'm always going to negotiate for my buyers, but I do find that some of the cash deals I have done, there was way more negotiating room than I found with finance deals. And that's just because they know they close quicker. They know they're going to get their money right then. So, they may knock a couple of thousand off, maybe, but I do see that's a difference as well. So I love cash deals. Yeah, I like cash deals. They're good and kind of easy and quick and to the point, as long as proof of funds is valid and confirmed. So yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
You gave a good example for a $200,000 home before, and it's pretty interesting because one of my friends specifically asked the question. He's getting ready to move into a house with his wife.
Mhm.
Now I'm just going to read it verbatim.
Okay.
Is it better to put down as little or as much as possible? What is a good down payment for a $200,000 home or house? I'll put my input on it, then I'll ask what your view is as a realtor.
Okay.
I will say, generally speaking, what Tamiko said as far as your credit is going to have a huge influence, because obviously that's going to determine your interest rate. But I'm outside of that, assuming that you are trying to line that up, you got to keep in mind that the bigger your down payment is, the less your monthly expense is going to be for your mortgage. And you want to take that in consideration. And you also want to keep in mind that if your down payment is less than 20%, you're probably going to end up paying a PMI insurance, which is just an additional fee that no one wants to pay. So you want to probably make sure, if you can, that it's higher than 20%. So in your particular case, a $200,000 home, that would be $40,000. That's just some things to take into consideration. But Tamika, what's your response to that question?
I agree with that, and that's such a good question, because it can vary. And I like your point as to, it depends on what the down payment is. If you're just looking to say, I just want to maybe throw another couple of $1,000s on it, I mean, yeah, that's great, because as Elijah mentioned, you will go into the home owing less. The more you put down, the less your loan amount. And that's awesome. However, you also want to talk to your real estate agent. If you just have, let me put it this way, if you have the money and that's what you wanted to use it for, I think, hey, use it for the reason that you want. But also talk to your loan officer, like, hey, Mr. Loan Officer, I'm going to, put this much more money down, and what's my payment going to be? And then if they talk to you and your payment's 450. This is just play numbers because you know your house payment's not going to be 450. Let me just say 1750. Just let's make it more realistic. So my house payment's going to be 1750. That's my mortgage payment. And then you go back to him and you're putting more money down, and your house payment's only going to be now like 1745. You know, like make sure the numbers make sense. Depending on that. But I do think that if you do, you know, the 20%, that's great because as he mentioned, you're now not having to pay that mortgage insurance premium, which is great. And, you know, I know that mortgage insurance premium isn't a lot, but that's still an extra, you know, included on your mortgage payment. So I would say that, you know, for one, sit down with your mortgage person, figure out how much more you're putting down, figure out if the numbers make sense in terms of if you're just doing it because you're trying to make your mortgage payment lower, or if you are really doing it from a mortgage insurance premium perspective. Because if you're doing it because of that, I think that's a more valid reason than maybe the payment. And you need to make sure it's a substantial amount in order to even make your payment budge. So yeah, that's my stance on it. I would say it depends on why they're wanting to do it. Most people do it because of the mortgage insurance premium, but then I do run into other people, they're doing it because they want their payment to be lower. And I just tell them, hey, see how much lower it's going to be, or keep that money in your pocket. And you can just make an extra payment toward your principal only, you know? So it just really depends.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a pretty popular rule of thumb is having your mortgage be 25% or less of your income. And if it's higher than that, then maybe you need to focus on making more money. That's just like a thought for the audience to consider.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, you're one like emergency away from not being able to pay it, and we don't want that.
Never. I always tell people that's why I kind of cringe when people are wanting to stay at a certain amount because they know what their budget is. And you have agents that know they're at the max, you know, and for whatever reason they're wanting to push that. Yeah, you want to make sure you're not. I tell people you don't want to ever live for your house. You know, you want to make sure you're living your life and enjoying it, but you don't want to, you know, live and work only because you're paying this mortgage, because then you're going to get really frustrated. And you have to keep in mind that sometimes taxes increase and, you know, values increase and insurance increases. So you still have those expenses. And if those increase, then that means your mortgage payment is, you know, a little bit more if you escrow. And even if you don't escrow, um, you're still having to pay that, you know, payment per year. So yeah, don't live for a house. Make sure you're budgeting and being smart.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone, we're gonna transition into the general Q&A. Now I still have some questions I'm gonna ask that y'all have submitted to me. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. We'll bring them up and we'll address those questions.
Okay.
This next question, it's kind of your view as a realtor, but I've heard two sides of the coin. So like when it comes to homeowners insurance, some people like, hey, you're paying for peace of mind. It's just awesome. You need to get it. And some people like, I've heard stories about something happened and I might as well have not had it. I still had to pay most of it anyway. So why not save on that monthly? Like, what's
Mm.
your recommendation? Would you say a person should be looking towards getting it or not getting it?
Now, do you mean like, well, okay, so if you pay cash for your home, I mean, if you don't want insurance, then you know it's your home. You don't have to carry insurance. However, if you do, you know, finance your home, and your a lender will require that you have homeowners insurance, and there's no way around that, unfortunately. I must say, gosh, I've had homeowners insurance, yeah, since 2011, and I finally used it because my roof, and that was maybe 2 years ago. So it is similar to car insurance. You feel like, gosh, I'm paying this and I don't always need it. But if you pay your home off or you pay cash for your home, it is your choice. However, if you finance, you don't have a say so, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
And on that topic, I have a question from someone in a tiny home. She's actually looking for homeowners insurance. The way she puts it, it's kind of hard to come across for tiny homes. It might
Mm.
not be something you could address as a realtor, but do you happen to know like any of your contacts that might be able to help her out with that?
Gosh, I've never come across that. I do have a name that I will give you that you can give her. A couple of people that I know do insurance, and maybe they can help. Gosh, I never even thought about that. Like, what problems is she running into just because, what are they considering? Like, what's the issue?
Well,
Just curious.
it was very general, so she didn't go into detail.
Okay, okay.
But
Probably just a different type of house, so
yeah.
I can understand that. Yeah, I have some names I'll shoot your way with some numbers, and she can try. And yeah, fingers crossed.
We have a question from the chat. Is it rare for appraisals to lower the cost of the house?
Is it rare for appraisals to lower the cost of the house? Well, yes. So when you get the appraisal, the main reason that the lender is wanting to get that done is because they're wanting to make sure that it's not valued too high. They're going to only lend you what, this question is kind of tricky though. So they're only going to lend the money based on the appraised value. So let's just say the house is $200,000. That's what you offered, and the home appraises for 205. Well, yay, you walk into that home with some equity. But now let's just say it comes in at 197. It's not that far off, but it comes in at 197. Well, now that lender is going to say, hey, we're not lending, you need to do an amendment, go back to the seller, see what you can do to negotiate that. And a couple of things can happen. Yes, you can lower that, price of the home to the 197, and this is what you and the seller are agreeing to. Or the seller may not agree and they want you to pay the difference. Like, nope, you know what? Your offer was for 200,000. Just because it came in at 197, I want you to pay that $3,000 difference. So it's kind of tricky, but yeah, it can make the price of the home go down in terms of what you're going to pay for it, because the lender is going to require that it comes in at value based on the contract price.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some of y'all are saying y'all are having trouble hearing me. So if y'all are, just let me know in the chat. We'll see what we can do about that. But in the meantime, we'll keep the questions rolling. So one big question that I've gotten is, what are some of the biggest mistakes the first time home buyers make when they're going through the home buying process or looking for a home or a house
Mm. Um, Goodness. I would say probably maybe um going a little bit over budget, not really paying attention to what their budget was. And so, you kind of bite off more than you can chew. So maybe in the first year or the second year, it may not hit you the first year, but maybe that second year, now you're kind of having a hard time because you just didn't budget right. So just kind of, your eyes are just like when you're eating, your eyes is like bigger than your stomach. So your eye is bigger than your wallet. So you have to just be careful in that, regard. I would also say maybe just not, I won't say necessarily not asking all of the right questions, but just mainly making sure you're understanding all of the process, especially when you're maybe building a home. Because when you're building a home, there's some factors that go into that. That means that, maybe your first year, your taxes won't be as high, but then that second and third year, once that development is built out,
Mhm.
now your taxes are higher because now there's actually homes in that subdivision for them to actually tax and get that assessed value from the county. So
Mhm.
um, just making sure that you really understand all of the process when it comes to whatever you're purchasing. And maybe like, huh?
I will ask this. If
Uh-huh.
it ties in, you can let me know. But is it a mistake to buy a home that's part of the homeowners association?
No,
Okay.
no. But it's a lot of mixed reviews. Some people feel like, hey, if I have an HOA, I can't do anything. And then some people feel like if I don't have an HOA, there's going to be all these cars in the front of my house, or, people aren't going to take care of their property. So it's so many, there's so many pros and cons that I hear people have when it comes to HOAs, they want to be in an HOA because they don't want someone to paint their house orange, or they don't want to be in an HOA because they don't want someone to tell them what to do with their house. So it's really, the HOA thing really depends on the person, is what I see. I think HOAs can be good though, because they make sure that certain things are taken care of, and it can help your home's value in terms of when you want to sell it. But if you don't have an HOA, you just have to hope that you're in a very good neighborhood, so that it's not maybe trashed out or things like that. But yeah, go ahead.
For first time buyers, that should be factored into this decision before you even talk to a realtor. Like, you should know, like, okay, if this is that big a deal, I should let them know.
As far as HOA,
yeah, like if it's a deal breaker or not.
Yeah, because there's a way that realtors, unless it's like not listed, but there's a way that we can see if it's an HOA community or not. So if that is a big deal, because you bring up a valid point. I have some that it's a guy right now, and he's like, yeah, and they have to have an HOA because right now it doesn't have an HOA, and he's concerned, with the neighborhood he's in now. Although his neighborhood's nice, but he's just, concerned with years down the line if there's no kind of control or mandate. So I would say yes, if that's something that is important, really whatever is HOA, front entry versus rear entry. I mean, all of those little just details, whatever they can give their agent in terms of requirements so that we can be on the lookout for that. Yes, but especially HOA, because that's a yearly fee that, you want to make sure that you either want that or you don't. And you don't want to have resentment that you're paying that and then you're like, for what? I don't even want an HOA. So yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and start the closing out. But anyone that has any final questions, be sure to leave them in the chat. But if anyone's interested in working with you, or they want to know what you have going on, what's a good place they can reach out to you?
Yeah, reach out on either Facebook or Instagram. Facebook, I have a business page, T Syrie Realtor, and that's the same for Instagram. I try to keep some good stuff going on those pages as well. You can go to my website. That is just TamikoSyrie.com, www.TamikoSyrie.com, and I'll be glad to help or answer any questions.
All right. Yep. And we'll be sure to leave links to everything she mentioned in the description and also in the pinned comment of this video. I would also ask that if you're finding this content valuable, don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Hit that bell notification so you can be notified when a new video drops, and hit the thumbs up button if you're finding a value in it. It's greatly appreciated. With that being said, I don't see any final questions.
Well, if any trickle through that I don't get, that you maybe get, yeah, just reach out to me. I'll be glad to answer. Yeah. And thanks for having me.
It was fun. And like I said in the beginning of this, like, that's one of the milestones for young adults. A lot of times we just, as we're going through our careers, we're picturing buying a house. So with that being said, we should be well informed on the process, and we need to be aware of any myths so we can dispel them and get in our first home and get in a situation we're not going to regret because we did everything right.
Yep, I agree. I totally agree.
So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close out the video. I appreciate you coming on and giving information to my audience, Tamiko. And like I mentioned, everything that she's on Instagram, Facebook, and her website, it'll be linked in the description and the pinned comment. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and cut it off for today. Don't forget to get out there and take control of your financial destiny, everyone. I will catch you on the next video. See y'all for now.
Bye.